We have Shelly Harrison, Convention of States with us. She's going to be talking about the effort to reform
WRAZ Radio 102.7 Adrian, Missouri.
There you are. Right.
Okay, well, before we get started, shout out to and their coaches, and to although it wasn't they had great and
WRAZ Radio 102.7 Adrian, Missouri.
in particular, my grandson Connor is on there, and I watched him and his buddies grow up.
Oh, we have one person.
Okay.
We never
WRAZ Radio 102.7 Adrian, Missouri.
Anybody listening?
Yeah.
If you're watching, say hi. Say hi. Just email.
WRAZ Radio 102.7 Adrian, Missouri.
Years I've seen a change, and an obvious change in a lot of ways. Which isn't what my understanding of marketing was. I wanted to find ways to help and help understand what's going on and maybe like change. So decades
WRAZ Radio 102.7 Adrian, Missouri.
raised a family, lived my life like many of your listeners today probably fun that they need to do. Going to work and there just came a day when I realized voting isn't enough, and our fathers intended for people to be involved at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. And unfortunately, I didn't focus on anything having to do with politics other than going and voting, right? And I thought I did my job doing that. And I came to realize over the last couple of years that I had been sleeping, honestly. And the government can't be on autopilot, because when they are on autopilot, they take the opportunity to grab power and excess power. And so I looked around for an opportunity to, understand politics. I joined a local party. Um, Started going to those meetings. I uh, signed a petition to um, limit term limits on elected officials, and then at one point I came to the uh, Convention of States website, and that's where I started really seeing what the power of the United States Constitution can do for we the people, and helping us in taking back control of our government as it was always meant to be. So, make sense? Yeah.
Makes perfect sense to me. I'm getting comments from people. Is the sound coming through better now?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
Okay.
But they're saying that it's cutting out on their end.
Oh, gotcha.
And that it what? It's better now. There's a delay.
Okay, gotcha.
About 7 seconds. So
okay.
So when I ask a question, it's 7 seconds before they hear it.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Did you get any of that Shelly was talking about? Or do we need to start her over?
And that's okay. I don't mind just, briefly saying some of that again. Me particular, I'm looking, I'm always looking for ways to understand our rights and freedoms and our constitutional liberties as how they should be.
May have to go downstairs and smack her.
Uh-oh.
I said, can you hear it? And she said, I heard politics. So, and I, I told you the other day when we talked that I stayed apolitical.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I had a business.
Right. Yeah.
And you don't want to alienate half your customers.
Sure. Yeah.
And I worked in public service for a while.
Okay.
Cop. And I had a guy tell me once that if you're doing this job and half the people aren't mad at you at any given point, you're not doing your job.
I think Colin Powell said something to that.
You're gonna make somebody mad if you do your job.
Sure.
So I stayed completely away from it.
Yeah.
And then after I retired, I started making more comments.
Yeah.
I didn't get quite as much as I am now.
Well, I'm a doer. I feel the need to get out and educate people. I feel the need for action, to go do something. And Convention of States has some of that opportunity. And so let me tell you a little bit about Convention of States, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay.
That's what you're here for.
Yes, sir. Okay. So with Convention of States, it was founded, it's a grassroots movement, right? That is seeking to build an army of activists and individuals who pay attention to what the federal government's doing, to speak with their state and local legislatures and be involved, as our forefathers intended for people to be statesmen. Honestly, that was the intent. And so
it was never meant to be a career.
You're exactly right. It was never meant to be a career. They would be surprised, I think, by that. The people have made careers out of it.
I would think they would be disgusted.
Probably.
That's my opinion.
So the founders of this grassroots movement, I'll talk a couple of minutes about them. Mark Meckler is an attorney. He is the current leader of the Convention of States movement. And Michael Ferris is a constitutional attorney who helped with founding the Convention of States movement. And their goal was to get citizens to come together and collaborate for self-governance.
And and this is not this is something interesting. If you look at the Constitution,
Yes, sir.
some of those people were in their early 20s.
Yep.
And then you had Ben Franklin, which was in his 80s. But
right.
But there's no age limit on that. If you want to get involved.
Oh, absolutely. Many young people were involved in that day, and they were building a country. And
sadly, usually when you see young people involved, they're the ones getting killed.
That is what we're doing today. We're sending them overseas and doing.
And it always does me good when I see somewhere that some 19-year-old kids ran for mayor.
Yes, sir.
And won.
Yes, sir.
Or a 20-year-old runs for city council and wins.
That's right.
And I understand the term and the age limitations on federal government.
Yeah.
And I can understand why they're there.
Right.
But I want to see somebody that's not 80 years old running for Congress,
Understood.
And hasn't been there for 50 years.
And maybe even understands the era. The United States has changed so much over the years and decades, and the technology alone has changed so much. But let me go back to this. The Convention of States movement takes a look at Article 5 of the United States Constitution. And Article 5 is a gift to us today from our forefathers. And originally, the wording in Article 5 was that Congress could offer amendments or suggest amendments, propose amendments to the United States Constitution, and the states, however many states there were then and now, the states ratify it by 3/4 of a vote. In today's world, that would be 38 states would ratify an amendment. And it only would take 13 states to say no to any amendment. Colonel George Mason stood up at the end of the Constitutional Convention in 1787 and said, "We have overlooked one thing, and that is that should the government ever become tyrannical or too overpowering, and perhaps even more stronger than the states, there is not a remedy for the people to take control back." So his suggestion was to add that the states could call an Article 5 convention, which is different from a constitutional convention. I'll get into that a little later. But an Article 5 convention could be called by the states and ratified by the states, completely outside of Congress. And so that allowed, and it was voted unanimously, and that allowed the verbiage to be set up so that either Congress could propose or the states could call a convention and propose and ratify amendments to the United States Constitution. So the question then is what's being proposed? What's the agenda for amendments? And the Convention of States is seeking three things. first and foremost, term limits. You mentioned term
Yes.
limits a minute ago. Term limits is, yes, sir. Term limits is the first thing that we're looking at. The second thing that we're looking at,
I'm going to run our kibitzer.
okay. The second thing that we're looking at is fiscal responsibility. We want to make sure that, I mean, right now we're spending our great grandchildren's money. We want to make sure that our country doesn't go bankrupt. And so having fiscal responsibility. And then lastly is defining the federal government's limitations and where the states, are sovereign. Our forefathers intended for the states to be sovereign and the federal government to support the states via commerce and those kinds of things to bring them together. And today it doesn't, I don't know if you'd agree, but federal government has become more powerful in a lot of ways than the state. So
the federal government is out of control.
Yes, sir. I do believe that myself. Yeah. Are we getting any questions?
I want you to go to Washington and fix things.
It's all right. I'm just one man. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. The Convention of States is there isn't one person that can fix everything. The Convention of States is focusing on building a grassroots army of people that, because together, remember what the verbiage of the Constitution is, we the people, right? We the people. And that's not one of us. That's not two of us. That's all of us. It takes all of us to be able to affect change. So we have, I don't know if do you have the map?
I just tried that. It wanted me to change settings, and the only way to change settings is to get out of this. So it's printing.
Oh, it is. Okay. Well, I'll tell you also, individuals can pull it up on www.conventionofstates.com.
Yes, a quick Google search.
Yes.
And it'll pop it right
Yes,
up.
sir. Yeah. So you can pull that up and scroll about halfway down that first page, and there is a map which Dale is going to show, I think, maybe. Yeah. Awesome.
And just let me.
And you'll see that we currently have 19 states that have passed the legislation. Yeah. Not sure if you can see that. So the yellow states are states that have passed legislation through one of their state legislatures, either the House or their Senate. And the green states are those states that have passed.
I plan on a little fancier than this.
That's okay. That's okay. You're fine. The green states are those states that have passed legislation. The good news is Missouri has passed.
Yes.
And in January of this year, we actually renewed that resolution. We were passed in 2017, and we renewed the resolution. And then the blue states, which you saw, and again, you can go to conventionofstates.com and see this map as well, right on the face page. The blue states are states that have, moving legislation, proposals or resolutions proposed. Every resolution that is passed and being proposed includes those 3 agenda items. So those 3 agenda items, again, are term limits for elected and non-elected officials. I should talk a little bit more about that in a minute.
And I just posted that link to the.
Oh, awesome. And then the second thing is fiscal responsibility, having a budget, not overspending. And then the last piece of that is, setting the expectations with the federal government, where the states have sovereignty and the federal government's overreach needs to end.
Now, I'm going to devil's advocate here.
Sure. Yeah.
One of the things I got it printed out, but I'm not going to get it. I think it's
Sure.
garbage.
Okay. All right.
It says that this movement for the Convention of States is backed by big money in order to corrupt our government. I looked at the website. They don't tell you who they are. I mean, they've got a name.
Yeah.
So it looked to me more like big money was the one backing this website.
I don't know what website you're talking about, but that's okay. That's okay. I can speak to this. So here's the thing. This is people like me that are out here volunteers all across. We have over 1 million volunteers all over the United States that are out here doing this. I don't have big money. The organization doesn't have big money, but what we are attempting to do is use the Constitution to rein in the federal government's overreach. Who does that threaten?
That threatens big money.
That threatens the government and big money. You're exactly right. And so
George Soros and
right. So the closer we get to having the consensus of 34 states, it takes 34 states to call a convention. Once we get closer to that, I expect we'll hear some noise. I expect we'll be challenged. We'll be
they're trying to paint you as the bad guys.
That's right.
But
we the people. This is not a a big corporation or government backed. It is individual volunteers all across the United States who believe in this country and who believe in the Constitution and what our forefathers founded this country on, that the principles that it was founded on.
One of the things I've been noticing, and I really didn't want to go too political on this, Democrat, Republican and stuff. But
look, before you go there, let me just say this. This is not a party affiliated thing.
Well, no,
this is again, citizens for self-governance versus the overreach of the federal government.
We're seeing most of your opposition coming from the Democratic side.
We have Democrats that
there are still some Democrats left out there that are old blue dog Democrats.
Yeah, there are.
But every time you see them pointing a finger, you got to remember the old thing about anytime you point one, there's 3 more pointing back at you.
Yeah.
And the more they scream about something, the more you want to look behind the curtain. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, what were you gonna?
Well, that's what I wanted to get out.
Okay.
Anytime you start seeing people, and again, that leans towards the Democratic Party, but I don't trust either side that much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime they start yelling and screaming about something that the other people are doing,
right,
take a closer look, because they're probably the ones actually doing it.
And I'll also challenge this as well. It doesn't matter which party is in power. Our expenses, our federal debt increases exponentially. It doesn't matter if it's red or blue. Power they continue to grab. Doesn't matter if it's red or blue. They continue to grab the power.
And neither side can take credit for anything on this, because we have not had a federal budget since Clinton was in office.
Mm-hmm.
So we need a budget.
Mm-hmm.
We need
to stick with that budget.
We need spending limits. Limits. Even in the old days when we had budgets,
mm-hmm.
there were clauses in there in case of war or anything like that. There were ways to free up more money.
Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah. Terry says we need to get big money out of there.
right.
And he's right.
I
He's
had that
absolutely
discussion
right.
just today with somebody who said there's and if you speak with your state legislators, Senator Bratton told me last year, or earlier this year, he said, we don't see people coming into our offices regularly. We see lobbyists more than we see citizens.
Yes.
So every individual is welcome in the state capitol. Go there and meet with your legislators. Send them messages.
Before I left, we had a state rep here that I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up with her because they redrew the districts.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost one I liked.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, God, this is not going to be good. It was Wanda Brown.
Okay.
I absolutely adore her.
Okay.
And I've tried to get her to run again.
Yeah.
She's been a representative for 2 terms.
Yeah.
We have term limits.
Yes. Missouri does have term limits.
I tried to get her to run for state senate. And she told me some things I'm not going to repeat. She wants nothing else ever to do with that again. But I knew another guy that he was a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
He ran
right
for state representative, different district than ours. He said he just couldn't stand the guy that was running.
Right.
And he said, I've got to run against him. Nobody else will. He won big time.
So,
and he said, this was 1 term and I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
He did 2 terms. He said, you got 1 term, you get stuff started.
You get it done in the
you've
second
got
term.
to stay for that second term.
Right.
And
but that's what our forefathers intended.
Yes.
Statesman citizenship that would leave the farm or their business for a period of time, go to the state capitol, go to Washington and serve for a term or 2 and then go back to your community.
Okay.
That's not what we're seeing in today's world. We're seeing career politicians that make a career out of it, and within a very short period of time, Alexandra Cortez is one of those people.
She's under investigation.
Goes from an individual who had, with nothing, and now her net worth is worth over $4 million, I believe someone said.
Yeah.
So how does that work in 1 term?
And she's under investigation for ethics.
Mm-hmm. So
which I find it interesting. It just made the news this week. It happened in June.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been set on.
Yeah.
All these Twitter files that are being released, CBS hadn't even mentioned them.
It's going to be an interesting thing. Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about my history. My father worked for the Kansas City Times newspaper. Do you remember the Times?
When they actually had a newspaper in Kansas City.
Newspaper. He worked there for several years, worked his way up, and I think he was metropolitan editor. Was his last job that he held there, which was right after the Hyatt Regency collapse, and he covered that.
I remember that.
And
I was there for that.
He covered that and had a Pulitzer Prize from that.
I was a small town cop, and they put out a call for anybody,
and
everybody
to help. Mm-hmm.
And I ended up
devastating.
Going up, and I took 2 paramedics with me, and I worked crowd control. At different time.
Right.
Radio stations back then actually had reporters.
Right.
The Times was a real newspaper. I'm not so sure about the Star, but me and the Star are not friends. But what was funny part, WHB had a lovely young woman that was their field reporter.
Okay.
She wanted to do her job.
Okay.
She did not respect police lines.
Oh.
I hauled her back across the street 3 times.
Uh-oh.
And one of Kansas City's old sergeants come by, and I said, I'm having a problem with this one. He said, she does it again, cuff her to that light post. I said, I don't think that's legal. He says, I think it is.
Okay.
And anybody gives you any trouble, you tell them to come to me. 5 minutes. Looked up, there she is, headed across the street again. I grabbed her, pulled her back, and cuffed her to the light post. Oh, she screamed bloody murder.
Oh, no.
And the police sergeant, Kansas City's police sergeant, came by and he said, shut up or you're going in the wagon.
Oh.
So, but
well,
people are crazy.
Going back to the topic of journalism, it's not being covered. It's not. It's dead, in my opinion.
Do you remember back in the 70s, Australia was having horrible time with their government. Again, they're having it again now.
Mm-hmm.
It's come full turn.
Yeah.
They started their own movement. And they had jingles and they had pop-up crowds and the movement was called Vote the Bastards Out. And it worked.
Really?
The ones they didn't get rid of, they got their attention.
Yeah.
And they had about 20 years there where things went pretty good. And now they're in the same boat we're in.
Yeah.
And Canada's even worse shape.
Right.
So
yeah, it's a global thing, but in
there's
my
global
opinion,
money behind it.
There is. I don't disagree with that, but
World Economic Forum.
Right. Yeah.
They want to do away with money.
Mm-hmm.
They want us all on electronic currency, and people don't seem to understand what that means. Mm-hmm. That means they can shut your money off at any time.
Just like the truck drivers. Trudeau did to the truck drivers.
Trudeau overstepped his authority considerably. Yeah. Now, they don't have the same liberties we've supposed to have.
Right.
And I'm not sure we do anymore.
We are, and this going back to the Convention of States thing, Dale, we are the last thing between world global socialism and freedom. So America,
and sadly, I think it's through all the political parties.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we got a chance.
I don't disagree that both parties or all parties are corrupt, but our chance is with we the people. Yeah. It has to be every single person. And my challenge to all your listeners out there today, if you have never written a letter to your legislator, if you've never gone to Jefferson City and spoke with a legislator or picked up the phone and called them, there's many ways to interact with them. You can email them online and talk to them about things that you're passionate about.
Some of them will actually respond.
They will respond. And what's more, if they hear your voice, they're beholden to you. You are their constituent.
When I lived in Jackson County, I wrote Emmanuel Cleaver.
Mm-hmm. But I
was madder at the response than I was for what I wrote for.
I've been there too, but don't be like me, where for decades, I won't tell you how many decades because I'm older than you might think, but for decades I didn't do anything but get out to vote. I didn't. This year I decided to get active. And I walked for candidates. I held meetings up here on Adrian Main Street at the event place on Main Street every month through the summer, and talk to people. Anybody who would come in the door and talk, I would tell them about the Convention of States.
A few years ago, I got foolish, and I was treasurer for an independent running for the U.S. House.
Okay.
That was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that big a deal. He didn't have any money. he was an
Yeah.
independent. So,
Okay.
but
But you got involved.
yeah,
And that is where we're at with it today. For years, they've been lulling us to sleep, and America has had comfort, and we've
well,
we've
we've
gone
been
to live our
spoiled.
we've been spoiled. We've gone to live our lives. We haven't lived like our grandparents lived through a Great Depression. We might be facing a Great Depression
My
coming up.
generation lived through some rough times.
Right.
I remember getting running water. I remember getting electricity.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the outhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
and
do sort of remember the outhouse at my grandmother's
it
house.
was cold in the
was.
winter.
And there were wasps in there in the
and
summer.
sometimes snakes and and people now have no clue. They don't know
Right.
what hard times is. And there's that saying that hard times makes hard men.
That's right.
Hard men make good times.
Good
Good
times
times make soft men.
Right.
And we're suffering from that right now. And we're going to have to go through
We are.
hard times again.
Yeah.
Those that do not study history
Are doomed to repeat it.
and those that do study history are doomed to watch the ones that don't study it repeated.
And to that point, Dale, I have sat down every single one of my grandkids, talked to them about the Bible, given them a constitution, and told them these are the things you're going to be facing, and challenge them. Challenge your children, challenge your youngsters today to not.
I think we've got real problems now. Our churches are corrupt. A lot of them.
Some of them.
And the big money churches are a joke. They're not churches. They're shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I've sat in church and found out that ministers don't really like it if you stop them in the middle of a sermon and say, that's not what the Bible says.
Oh, okay. I'm glad I go to a church that I don't have to do that.
This verse from John, it was not meant to be read paired with this verse from Matthew. You're changing the context of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. They do not like it when you do that.
Yeah.
And I've told people, I didn't quit the church. The church quit me.
Yeah.
I'm an ordained minister.
Okay.
And you don't see me holding any services.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Would anybody be interested in making a phone call? Let me find my little banner. And I'll put the phone number up on screen.
While you're doing that, if it's okay with you, I'm going to read the verbiage of Article 5. Would that be okay?
Yes. And
right.
I just put the phone number on screen. It's 520-373-0783.
All right. So here's what Article 5 says. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states in today's world, that's 50 states, shall call a convention for proposing amendments. Now, well, let me finish reading it. Which in either case shall be valid to all intents and purposes as part of the Constitution, when ratified by the legislatures of 3/4 of the several states, or by conventions in 3/4 thereof, as the one or other mode of ratification may be proposed by the Congress, provided that no amendment which may be made prior to the year 1808 shall in any manner affect the first and fourth clauses in the 9th section of the first article, and that no state without its consent shall be deprived of its equal suffrage in the Senate. So that's all it says in Article 5. Couple of points that I'd like to make on this. One is, as I said earlier, Colonel George Mason proposed that the states should be able to call a convention for the purposes of amendments should because Congress is never going to fix itself, right? So if it's going to be something we're going to do,
not anymore, because
not anymore.
They're not going to cut their benefits.
That's right.
They've got automatic pay raises built in now.
Right. So the states have that leverage. Couple of things. An Article 5 convention has never been called before for the purposes of making amendments. It limits, and I've had this argument before, and I wanted to be sure to bring it up for your viewers. Oops. Is that a call?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, you're on here.
Oh, I can't hear.
I can't either.
Hello.
Let me turn you up here. All right. Now you're on here. Hello?
Oh, I think it dropped.
Yep.
So let me go back to what I was saying. The Article 5 convention, you'll have some people that say that there could be a runaway convention, that it could, they can propose crazy things and they could rewrite the Constitution. And
Hello.
Hi, Dale.
This is Dale.
It is. Yeah, I can hear you a lot better now. Now I'm getting the noise again, but I think you can understand my question for your guest there is the question I have, not knowing anything about anything, is what is the chances of this succeeding and how do we stay on target to get this done?
Shelly.
Great question. Yeah.
All right.
So,
thank you.
So
okay, thank you.
I'll repeat the question just to make sure everybody understood or heard it. I believe the caller asked what we can do to make sure that this succeeds, and what was the other question, Dale?
And stay on target.
And stay on target. Very good question. That's what people like me are helping to do. So first off, it's education of the public, getting individuals to understand what an Article 5 convention is, what the purpose is, and to speak to their state legislatures, especially those states that have not passed the resolution, and make sure that they hear from their constituents that you want that resolution to be passed. And then secondly, once it's passed, so in Missouri, the only way that we're going to send delegates is by having a resolution passed to allow for delegates and set the rules for delegates and send them, have them prepared to go to a convention.
And there's no rules laid out in the Constitution.
So there's
the delegates will, when they do a convention, they will write their own rules.
Nope. So the resolution,
the procedural rules,
right? The resolutions that Convention of States has written up is passed off to each of the states. Our constitutional attorneys have put together, and again, the amendments are those three items that I previously discussed: the term limits, fiscal responsibilities, and reining in the overreach. Those are the amendments that would be going. The legislatures,
and two of those are wide open.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to hammer that out because
they will all be debated.
Yeah,
they will all be debated at a convention.
For me, the big one would be term limits. Nobody gets more than 2 terms in any office.
Right. Yeah.
Not 2 consecutive terms, 2 terms. I don't care if you run for the Senate, you take a term off and then you come back and run again. You're done.
So
2 terms.
so how can it succeed? With each and every one of us participating,
No.
either writing letters to our legislators. You could every citizen could potentially have the ability to go and be one of the delegates, one of the commissioners that are called to go to the convention.
Would-
So
Missouri's
Missouri is
in
passed.
it, but if I'm sure we have people that are on the Kansas side that hear some of this. That
Mhm.
actually will be listening to this, maybe not right now, but tonight or in the morning.
Okay, gotcha.
We also have people in Nevada,
Mm-hmm.
Arizona. Of course, Arizona's passed,
Mm-hmm.
New Mexico. And these people here that we're an international, in case you're wondering.
Okay.
George, are you out there? George is in Thailand.
Okay.
We have Canadians. So
So let me talk a little bit about the second part of that. So Missouri has passed the resolution to call a convention, so they're on board with doing that. The second thing that Missouri needs to do, and has not yet done that, is call have a resolution to call commissioners. And every state that passes has this also to do. So when you call a commissioner, it's going to be how many are you going to call? What are their roles going to be? And that's outlined. Convention of States has outlined that for them. But every state will have opportunity to call their own commissioners. Now, at one of my meetings, I had a 17-year-old boy ask me this question. He says, "But what are the requirements for a commissioner? What attributes are you looking for?" It's a citizen. It can be a legislator, but primarily they're going to be citizens, and they're going to be the same kind of people that you would look to run for an office. So not a
Right.
criminal background, not those kinds of things.
they could be Joe the barber.
It could be
It
the
could be-
farmer.
Could
It
be
could
a banker.
That's right. It could be the receptionist at your business.
The chances of getting appointed,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to know somebody.
No. I mean, they're going to come from each and every district. So another good question that people ask is, how many votes does each state get? That's one. That's right.
There's 50 votes.
That's right. There's 50 votes.
Puerto Rico don't get to
So
vote.
if we send a delegate from every district, what do we got? 162 districts, I
I
think.
can't remember.
I can't remember either. But if we send 162 people to the convention when it's called, we send that many people, they all have to come up with a yes or no. That's it. We're voting yes for this or no for this. And they have to come up with that. And they will have a group of legislators in our state capitol that they'll answer to, that will be part of this. There'll be a committee basically that will oversee the commissioners.
And I've already told you this. I think 162 is a foolish number.
Yeah, I mean every state might vary in what they'll
I think
send.
no less than 3.
Oh, it'll be more than that.
No less than 3.
You
No
want
more.
somebody, the way we're looking at it, and I don't work every day in the legislature. Brett, who I copied in on our emails, he does. But the way I look at it, just me personally, I'd want somebody from my district also representing. So not somebody from St. Louis, somebody from Kansas City, and somebody from Springfield.
I don't want anybody from St. Louis or
Okay.
Kansas City.
So doesn't that make sense that you have somebody from your district that
I
represents?
think we should gift St. Louis to Illinois. Here, it's yours. We're not taking it back.
Okay, that's fair. I like that. I like that.
I don't like St. Louis.
So hopefully I
There are
answered.
some good. It's like saying the same thing about New York City.
Yeah.
I don't care for New York City. Upstate New York, I love.
Yeah, it's where my sister's from.
DC.
Yeah.
But you get out into the surrounding area in Maryland and Virginia and stuff. That's nice.
Yeah.
Those are good people.
Yeah.
DC don't have that many good people.
There's good people all over the country, and I believe in the people, we the people, being able to turn this around.
If you want to talk to people,
Mm-hmm.
you don't go to Jeff City. You don't go to Kansas City.
Mhm.
You don't go to St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Butler.
Yeah.
You go down even Nevada.
Right.
You go to, let's stay away from Wichita, but the smaller towns.
Right.
That's where the people
That's
are.
Main Street America.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Arizona City, Arizona,
Mhm.
or Why, Arizona. There's some interesting town names there.
Okay.
Peculiar, Missouri.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the towns where you find people.
Yeah.
And they're not brainwashed.
Yeah.
If you really want to find something, and we're losing that ability now because they're not surviving. The old Main Street cafes,
Mhm.
where all the farmers and the businessmen got together early in the morning and had
For
their
coffee.
coffee. Rainy days, they went in and had their coffee. You want to learn something, go listen to those people. They're not around anymore. We've
No.
lost so much of our wisdom and our history.
You're right. I remember a couple of old fellows that used to do that right here in Adrian. Billy too. We called him the mayor of Altona, I believe it was. Nice old fellow, and he would say, "Well, I got to go to college now." I'd be like,
Altona.
I'd say,
He
"No, the
probably
college."
He probably knew Barefoot Burton.
Probably. the college, his college was Rudy's 66 station. He said that's where he'd go get his coffee and learn what's happening for the day.
It's Phillips 66 and Archie. David's Cafe on Main Street, which is no longer there.
Yeah.
You go in there on a rainy afternoon, and the old guys were probably younger than I am now, playing cards and playing pool and talking and
Right.
stuff. If you were smart enough to go in there and listen, you'd get an education. Guys, if anybody else wants to call, we're going to stick with it for a few more minutes. 520-373-0783.
Hopefully I answered that gentleman's call. But basically, our success is going to be measured by every individual participating. And
Do you foresee this happening in the next 5 years?
oh yeah. Yeah, I do believe it's going to.
3 years?
I don't have a way to put
You're
a time limit on it.
You're supposed to give me a number.
Trust me, I have asked that of our leadership multiple times, and every which way I can. We're working hard, and it's come a long way. Just this year alone, 4 states have passed.
Look how long it took to pass the 33rd amendment, the 23rd Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Look how long it's taken to pass some of the civil rights amendments.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last state to approve that was 1995.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's like 30 years.
Agreed.
However, it had already passed, but the state hadn't ratified it.
This is motivating when individuals start thinking about this Constitution, I don't know if they can see that, but the Constitution, what it says your power is. I think that there are people that don't have any clue just how powerful they are individually.
Well,
Again,
I think we're losing power. Our votes
okay.
are being diluted.
I don't completely disagree with that on a personal level.
I think it's sad.
Mm-hmm.
And then
But what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do?
I tell you what I'm about ready to do.
Okay.
If I still lived in Arizona and had to deal with Maricopa County anymore, I would think vigilantism would be an option. And I know some of the sheriffs there are thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And
we're
going to see it, and we're going to start seeing that.
We could go and be poll watchers. We could go and participate in that.
Do you remember what happened in 2020?
A little bit, yeah.
They run the poll watchers out.
I saw that. Yeah.
And then started
that was in
shuffling
Wisconsin.
stuff.
Yeah. I did see that.
And I've been talking to a few other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly think with some of the stuff that's going on now, we got rapists being turned loose.
Right.
We've got murderers being turned loose.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to see a rise. I'm too old for this crap, but I think we're going to start seeing a rise in vigilante happening. I think people are going to get to the point that they're absolutely fed up.
Right.
I feel sorry.
Start here. That's what I'm going to say.
I feel sorry for our sheriffs.
Yeah.
They're our last bastion. They're our elected law enforcement.
Yeah.
They know they're elected.
We're very lucky in that we have Sheriff Anderson in Bates County.
I'm not too sure we shouldn't go out and dig Buck Huff up and bring him back. But the sheriffs know what's going on.
Yeah.
They don't. They arrest a guy, they put him in jail,
right,
and the judge turns him loose.
Yeah.
You get a slap on the hand. You go on probation. Yeah. And people have had it.
People have had it.
You're starting to hear some really serious rumbles.
Yeah.
And I talked to a lot of people on both sides of this fence.
Mm-hmm.
And both sides of the fence are getting fed up.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, and then there's still the ones with their head in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
Shelly, what do you got important you want to say before I shut this down?
So a couple of things. One, the Constitution gives you the power. The Article 5 is our founding fathers' solution should our federal government ever become tyrannical. Article 5 was their solution. And
it's happened.
And it is the peaceful way of solving our problems. Will it be easy? No, it won't.
They made provisions in there for not so peaceful too.
Right. But what Article 5 and Convention of States is seeking to do is to bring the people, the grassroots people, back into power. And the way that they can do that is by every individual participating, every individual getting involved, by going back to the basics. You know, this is a skinny little document. I think there's a little over 8,000 words in here, but this is not the Constitution that our federal government is following. Our federal government is following over 3,000 pages of Supreme Court opinions on the Constitution.
I think we need to bring back that Constitution.
That's right. We do.
And we need remedial classes for everybody in the Senate and on the House floor.
So And
understand what it says. It's written in plain, simple
it is.
English.
It is plain, simple language, and there is nowhere in here that gives the federal government the right to the length of overreach that they've gotten to today. Nothing in here. Now, the other thing I was going to say is just to quell any questions about runaway convention. So I get that. I get asked that at almost every one of my meetings. Well, first the runaway, and then second, who's going to enforce? Okay, so first the runaway. It only takes 13 states to say no to any amendment.
Well, let's get it happening before we lose more states, because
right.
We've already lost several.
Right. The individuals that are sent as commissioners have only those amendments to propose. The three that I mentioned. They cannot propose anything else. So there's no possibility of, and because of the wording of Article 5, which I read earlier, there's no possibility of them scrapping the Constitution and rewriting the whole thing. So people think that, and they're going to try and make it seem like that's what we're doing, and it is absolutely not.
I encourage people to get a copy of the Constitution.
Well, I encourage people, and that's the last
and read it.
And that's the last thing that I was going to tell you, is that I had intended to do this in the fall, and it didn't happen. I need a place to meet, but I intend in 2023 to teach Constitution classes for free to our community. And I'm not a constitutional scholar, but Convention of States gives me the tools with a DVD and workbook series to be able to teach that for free in our community. So that's something that I'm going to be offering in 2023, a 6-week class.
Set up a webinar.
I could do it by webinar. Sure. I could do it by webinar. I like doing it in person so I can see and talk to people and that kind of thing.
Okay. We're losing people.
Okay.
We've lost some.
That's all right.
And the thing is, the numbers tonight mean nothing. The numbers by this time tomorrow will mean something.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put the radio station back.
Okay.
And then
it's been a pleasure talking with you tonight, Dale, and a pleasure with our individuals that have been on the phone.
If you want to do this again, just let me know. We'll set it up.
Okay. All right.
If you decide you want me to help you with a webinar, let me know.
Okay.
And all right, we're going to wind it up here. I think it was interesting. I hope you did. I think you all should say thank you to Shelly. And I'm going to put 102.7 is going to go back to playing nonstop oldies in just a minute. So y'all have a great night. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. Y'all take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. Good night, all.